One of the common questions that come up is how to create a new model. Maybe you found a GGUF file on Hugging Face, or you converted a raw model weights file, or you want to save your system prompt to something that you and your colleagues can run later on. There are a lot of reasons why you might want to create a new model. Now, I am sure there are some folks out there that will say that's not a model. The model is what you find on Hugging Face, and that's where Ollama is special. It recognizes that the model weights file that you downloaded from Hugging Face is useless without the template or the system prompt. So all of those should be combined to make up a complete model. And that's what we're going to do right here. Now, some others are going to say that I've done this video before, but I'm going to try something a little new here. Staying on point. This is just about creating a new model and the corresponding model file. Tangents that I often like to include will go in their own singles videos that I'll post every now and then. Okay, so you found a GGUF file. Here I have one I grabbed from this repo, Maziar Panahi Biomistral 7B GGUF. I downloaded a 4-bit quantization and it's in this directory. I'll rename it to a snake case file to make it a little easier to work with. Now create a model file. I'll add a single directive here, from, and the relative path to the file. From is all in caps, but that's just to make it easier to read. The case doesn't actually matter. Now I can try Ollama create biomistral. Note that often you'll see a -f argument and the path to the model file. If you call the model file just model file and you're in that directory, you don't always have to include the -f. And then Ollama run biomistral. This is a model trained on medical data, so let's ask a medical question. What is a tumor?
It's not a tumor.
And we get an answer that isn't very satisfactory. If we created a model based on another model already in the Ollama library, it would inherit the parent's template. But this is from the model weights that we download. So we need to set the template. But how do we figure that out? The README is the first place to look. Hopefully there is some indication of what the template should be. And here in the README is some sample code. In our model file, add a template directive, followed by 2 pairs of 3 double quotes. Copy the template from the code sample and paste it into the model file. Now replace the system message with .system in double curly braces and replace prompt with .prompt, again with the double curly braces instead of 1. We can create the model again with Ollama create biomistral and try running it and asking again, what is a tumor?
It's not a tumor.
And that is a better answer. Now, figuring out the template and the system prompt is a bit of an art rather than a science. We got an answer, but for some reason, when I got that, I felt that something was wrong. When the person who created the GGUF file is not in the team that created the model weights, you sometimes have to be a little bit suspicious. And I feel like I have seen that template with other non-Mistral related models. Since this model is based on Mistral, I looked up the Mistral model on Hugging Face at Mistral AI/Mistral-7B-instruct-v0.2. And the template seems to be very different. Let's take a look at the repo for the biomistral model that the original team created. Looking through there, I couldn't find the template. So let's go to Files and then click on tokenizerconfig.json. This file often has really useful info. At the top, we see a few special tokens, and then below is a chat template. This is a little harder to read, but it starts with the BOS token, which just above is defined as an S in angle brackets. And then it says instructions need to be given as user, then assistant, then user, then assistant, etc. There is no system prompt recognized by the model. If the role is user, then have inst enclosed in square brackets, and then the message content, and then /inst in square brackets, and then any assistant messages. Then for another user prompt, include the inst tokens again and keep repeating. After the whole thing, include the EOS token, which is defined below as /s in angle brackets. That's a lot different than the template, which seemed to be boilerplate from the bloke. So let's create the model again with Ollama Create Biomistral and try our question again.
It feels like a tumor.
Well, this looks good. In testing before creating this video, I tested a bunch of times and generally saw much better answers with the new template. And now you can start to play around with the parameters. Temperature is a good one to try. Add parameter temperature 0.2. Create the model and try the what is a tumor question.
It feels like a tumor.
Repeat with temperature set to 1.8. Do you see any difference? Ideally, you would try each a few times because you're usually not going to get the same answer every single time. And what's the range on temperature? Well, it depends on which documents you read. I have seen it's from 0 to 1, or 0 to 2, or 0 to 5, or even any non-zero number. Sometimes you get some interesting answers at 3, or 5, or higher. Sometimes you'll see strange tokens appear in the output, so try adding those as stop tokens. You can find the full docs for the model file here, but remember, this stuff is definitely closer to an art than a science. Often the Ollama team publishes a model using what the weights creation team suggests, and it turns out to be not that effective, and it's comments from the community that help tweak the configuration to something that works a lot better. If you run Ollama pull in the model name a few days after the release, you might get an updated model. Once you have the model done, you can push it to the Ollama library. You can learn more about doing that here. Lots of folks have published different models, and you can see a few folks have published this same model. Or just download my version at m/biomistral. Have you created any interesting models? Share them in the comments below. Thanks so much for being here. Goodbye. This is a mug from Pack Westy, where we rented a camper van.